please.
No.
We don't need this debate in Hamilton.
No.
We've got too many other important debates to talk about. Okay, let's talk about something you wanted to get into
Yes,
today. Tell me
yes.
why.
So again, loving the headline, the religious conversion topic here.
I was on a roll this morning.
Yeah.
After the long weekend, you know.
The question that we'll put out there is, should St. Mark's be converted into a cultural space? So St. Mark's is a historic church across the road from City Hall's parking lot at the corner of Bay and Hunter Street. St. Mark's is a spin-off. There was a schism in the congregation of the church at King and Queen, whose name I forget, but whose steeple fell down a few years ago. And half of that congregation didn't like the preacher and didn't like the leadership. This is 150 years ago, built that church. Weirdly and on the cheap, because it never had pews, it never got properly finished. Anyways, in 1994, and it's a pretty nifty space, in 94 the congregation was all but finished, and the building went back to the city of Hamilton. For 20 years, the city has, in spurts, been entertaining ideas of what to do there. 20 years later, 20 years of half that building has been demolished, 20 years of poorly maintaining it, 20 years of entertaining ideas and rejecting them, has now come up with a staff report that says for approximately $3 million, the space can be viable as a city building where the city would then rent it out for poetry readings, movie shoots. What else did they
Kind of
list
like
there?
the Ockmore Estates, if it were used more.
Well, but that building's screwed too, and it's all boarded up now.
Right.
I am absolutely in favor of more cultural spaces. I am a strong advocate of heritage protection, and that's a cool old building I've been in many times, and sometimes even fairly recently. But it took you 20 years to figure out that something should be done there, a $3 million investment on a business plan that the city's numbers show will generate $11,000 to $60,000 worth of revenue a year. I'm not sure how you're going to make a business case that that's a good investment of $3 million. $11,000 doesn't pay the insurance and the hydro bill to keep that place open. So in as much as I'm in favor of cultural spaces and architectural preservation, this deal is goofy.
Well, when I look at all of the other priorities that are in front of council, and there are many. Just as an example, and obviously everybody knows, I signed the volunteer lobby registry that I've been in a weird position of kind of lobbying council to finish a project they started 12 years ago,
Right.
which is to get an actual Hamilton sign on the highway. And there was money spent in that, right? Kind of along the same lines. The city tends to spend money in not quite complete projects or fully execute on them, and it can be frustrating to watch. There's no doubt about it. But given that debate around the cost of the sign, and now the city staff is going to bring down that cost, which is great. That debate, a $230,000 kind of permanent sign, and I remember the mayor saying, well, we did a $600,000 bathroom, the sign's not overpriced, but still, council said we have to bring down the cost, that's fine. But then there was a big debate about whether Lincoln Alexander deserved a statue for $300,000. I mean, this is Link. We're not going to get another citizen like Link for another 100 years, right? So now we're talking about, what, $3 million for this building to turn into a cultural space? Again, cultural space is great. I'm not for that, especially affordable space. It just seems to me that with the interest coming into Hamilton and with the interest in historic properties and with people always looking for kind of new condos and new developments, we might be wiser, considering money is so tight, to look at other public interests in this space. I mean, and I know, or private interests rather. And
But they've all been rejected.
Yeah, I'm hearing you say that.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that I think with Go Service coming, and with who knows who will win the provincial election, we'll rant about that in a minute, but with the increased value of the real estate in Hamilton projected now and over the next 5-10 years, maybe this is not an investment the city needs to make.
But
right
by
now.
no means is that small historic church worth $3 million. It's that far gone, and $2.8 million is what it's going to take to save it and make it usable for something. I would venture a guess that 20 years ago that $2.8 million would be less than a third. They've already spent $650,000 by mowing the lawn and preserving it poorly, because up until a couple of years ago was the last time I tried.
How important is it for you as a heritage asset?
It's a very old building, architecturally not so significant, but it plays an interesting story in our Anglican Empire Loyalist history.
Sure.
It is a neat space, but a spa has been rejected from private industry. A restaurant has been rejected there.
Do you know why?
Because the culture department and/or the neighborhood association didn't want it. There was a wonderful proposal for a sexual assault treatment center there. Nope, not suitable either. So to suggest that there's better options from the general public in terms of commercial use, well, apparently not, because none of them really met the mark.
Well, I think it bears more discussion just based on all of the other talk about saving money that I've heard from the city on various other initiatives, right? $3 million for something that doesn't sound like it's ever going to make back that revenue, let alone make a profit. I mean, the city doesn't have to be operating as a business where it needs to make a profit, but you'd want it to eventually recoup that investment, right?
So there's a lesson learned here by the city that they really need to think twice when pointing the finger at private ownership of historical properties when they can't maintain their own. And Akmar and St. Mark's are culturally significant buildings that have been in the city's hand for some time, and we as a municipality are turning them into natural ruins. I think that is universally unacceptable.
Well said. It just seems like a big price tag without a lot
true.
of business case for it.
Yep.
Okay, let's get on to the election mashup. Now,
Right.
just a couple things on the non-trustee, and then you'll take us to trustee. Jamie West, we brought up a couple weeks ago, was thinking of running. He's decided he's not going